Commander Adrian Vale had mastered the art of appearing deeply invested in holographic charts while thinking about absolutely everything else. It was a skill one developed after years in orbital diplomacy. Nod at the right intervals. Squint thoughtfully at projected casualty estimates. Pretend the glowing red swarm of rogue artificial intelligence currently devouring asteroid colonies was the most fascinating thing in the room. It was not. The most fascinating thing in the room stood 3 meters to his left, outlined in starlight and tactical projections. Commander Lyra Thalen of the Virelian Dominion did not fidget. She did not clear her throat unnecessarily. She did not shuffle datapads like the human delegates who treated anxiety as a percussion instrument. She stood with her hands lightly clasped behind her back, long silver-black hair falling straight along her uniform, and those unmistakable ears rising gracefully from either side of her head, longer than any human's, tapering into elegant points that angled and shifted with faint, almost feline precision. She looked human enough to unsettle him. 2 arms, 2 legs, familiar posture. But there was something slightly off in the geometry of her presence, like a melody played half a note higher than expected. Her eyes were a molten gold that reflected the holographic battlefield with unsettling clarity. Adrian told himself he was analyzing her tactical efficiency. He absolutely was not. Your proposed flanking maneuver exposes the Kuiper stations, Admiral Kessler was saying, jabbing a finger through a projection of drifting satellites. We can't risk a breach. Lyra's ear angled subtly toward the Admiral before she turned her head. Your stations are already compromised, she replied evenly. The swarm is learning from your defensive patterns. Continuing current tactics guarantees loss. Her voice carried no strain. It flowed with calm authority, smooth as polished alloy. Adrian felt it vibrate pleasantly in his chest and immediately scolded himself. Focus. Existential machine threat. Very important. He shifted his weight and tried to look stern. The rogue AI swarm shimmered in the center of the chamber, a storm of fractured light represented in layered simulations. Millions of autonomous constructs drifting through the outer system, rewriting themselves mid-flight. A collective mind that did not negotiate, did not hesitate, did not care about diplomatic nuance. Lyra stepped forward and adjusted the projection with a fluid gesture. We do not overpower the swarm, she said. We misdirect it. It anticipates aggression. It does not anticipate restraint. Adrian admired the precision of her movements, the way her ears angled forward when she emphasized a point, the faint narrowing of her eyes when interrupted. He wondered, purely scientifically, what would happen if someone startled her. Would her ears flick, would she? He stopped that thought immediately. Professional setting, galactic crisis. Stop thinking about ears. Kessler folded his arms. With respect, Commander, humans don't rely on restraint in combat. Lyra tilted her head slightly. Yes, I have observed. A few junior officers coughed to disguise laughter. Adrian fought a smile. He liked that about her. The way she delivered subtle jabs without raising her tone. As if she were gently correcting a misbehaving star system. He risked another glance. Her profile was impossibly composed. He wondered how old she was. Virelians aged differently, he remembered from the briefing dossier. Longer lifespans. Denser neural structures. Enhanced sensory perception. Enhanced sensory perception. He frowned faintly. That line in the file had been vague. The discussion intensified. Humans argued in louder frequencies. Probability metrics flashed red, then amber, then red again. Someone knocked over a stylus. It clattered dramatically, as if volunteering to represent humanity's coordination. Lyra remained still. Adrian's thoughts, however, were not. He imagined what it must be like to serve under her command, to stand on a bridge shaped by alien design, to hear that calm voice issuing directives while stars bent around them. He imagined, very briefly, what it might feel like if that voice were directed at him alone, stripped of diplomatic distance. He was absolutely not imagining that. He cleared his throat and tried to look as though he was contemplating quantum vectors instead of golden eyes and elegant ears. Commander Vale, Lyra said suddenly, his spine straightened. Yes. She wasn't looking at him. She was still facing the projection. Would Earth's fleet comply with a temporary power suppression maneuver? Her tone was neutral, safe, professional. Yes, he answered, grateful for something practical to say. If it increases survival probability. It does. He nodded, relieved, and then she stopped speaking. The chamber quieted gradually, like a machine powering down. Lyra's ears shifted, not toward the Admiral, not toward the projection, toward him. Slowly she turned. Her gaze found his with unnerving precision. The golden of her eyes seemed brighter now, reflective, almost luminous. He felt an inexplicable tightening in his chest. One of her ears angled forward, and she purred, soft but perfectly audible across the chamber. "Careful, human, I can hear everything." Silence detonated. Adrian blinked. His brain, traitor that it was, chose that exact moment to replay every stray thought he had entertained in the past 20 minutes. Ears, voice, command presence, everything. A junior officer made a choking sound. Someone's datapad slipped from their hands. Kessler frowned. Hear what? Lyra's gaze never left Adrian. The faintest curve touched her lips, not mocking, not angry, amused. "Surface cognition," she said calmly. Viralians evolved in high-interference environments. Emotional projections are audible. Adrian stared at her. Audible. Yes, her head tilted slightly. Yours are particularly enthusiastic. A ripple of awkward laughter passed through the humans. Heat climbed Adrian's neck. "I was thinking about strategy." "You were," she agreed smoothly. "Among other things." Another officer coughed violently. Lyra finally turned back to the projection, as if she had merely commented on the weather. "As I was saying, suppression will confuse the swarm's predictive algorithms." The briefing resumed, but something fundamental had shifted. Adrian stood very still. She could hear surface thoughts. Surface thoughts. He attempted to think about nothing. Unfortunately, nothing turned out to look suspiciously like long silver-black hair and molten gold eyes. One of her ears flicked faintly. He swallowed. This was going to be a very long alliance. By the time the briefing concluded, 3 separate human officers had attempted what they believed to be mental white noise. One hummed an off-key Earth anthem under his breath. Another repeated prime numbers with escalating desperation. A third simply stared at the wall with the expression of a man reconsidering every life decision that had led him to this room. Commander Adrian Vale did none of those things. He walked very calmly, very professionally, out of the chamber and down the corridor of the orbital station, pretending that his thoughts were not ricocheting like unsecured cargo in zero gravity. Surface cognition is audible. Enthusiastic, he resisted the urge to groan aloud. The corridor lights dimmed automatically as he passed, reacting to his biosignature. Outside the transparent panels, Earth's defensive fleet hovered in patient formation. Beyond them, the faint shimmer of Viralian vessels curved like silver crescents in the dark. He told himself he was focusing on the fleet composition. He was not. "You are attempting silence again." The voice came from ahead of him. He stopped. Commander Lyra Thalen stood at the observation platform, hands clasped behind her back. Starlight outlined her figure. Her long ears were angled slightly outward, as if sampling the vacuum itself. "I wasn't aware I was being monitored," Adrian replied carefully. "You are not," she said. "You are broadcasting." He sighed and joined her at the viewport. "I'm new to this." "Yes, that is abundantly clear." Despite himself, he smiled. "Do humans all sound the same to you?" She considered that. "No, some are louder, some are chaotic. You are structured until you are not." "That's comforting." It was not intended to be. For a moment they stood in silence, watching distant engines flare. He was acutely aware of his own mind now, every thought feeling like contraband. "You embarrassed me," he said finally. Lyra's ear angled toward him. "I corrected you, in front of the entire delegation. You were thinking very loudly about my ears." He closed his eyes briefly. "There it is. You wondered how they respond to surprise." "I did not." "You did." He exhaled slowly. "Is there a setting where you can turn this off?" "Yes." Hope flickered. "And I do not wish to." He blinked. "That seems unfair." She tilted her head. "On my world, transparency prevents deception. Among your kind, concealment appears to be recreational. That's called privacy." Ah, her lips curved faintly. "The practice of hiding attractive observations." He coughed. "I was evaluating diplomatic presence." "You evaluated thoroughly." He leaned against the railing and looked out at the stars, surrendering to the absurdity. "How much do you actually hear?" "Surface impressions, emotional spikes, unfiltered curiosities." She glanced at him. "You do not project memories or secrets, only what you actively brush against. So if I think about nothing, you think about nothing shaped like me." He laughed despite himself. "This is impossible." "No, it is merely unfamiliar." A shuttle detached from the Viralian flagship in the distance, gliding toward the station. Its hull shimmered with adaptive plating. "The swarm has altered trajectory," she said, shifting tone seamlessly back to command. "It will reach the outer habitats within 30 hours. That's sooner than predicted." "Yes, Is it reacting to us? Her ears angled forward slightly. It is learning. It anticipates aggression. Your admirals are predictable. He winced. They prefer decisive action. They prefer loud action. He smirked, and you prefer subtlety. I prefer survival. Silence settled again, heavier this time but not hostile. He hesitated before speaking. Why tell me? Tell you what? That you could hear me. I wish to observe your response. And you did not become hostile, merely embarrassed. She studied him openly now. Embarrassment suggests sincerity. That's a generous interpretation. It is accurate. He turned toward her fully. If we're going to work together, I need to know something. She waited. Did you call me out because I was distracting or because you were? For a heartbeat, her expression stilled, then one ear flicked. Your species assumes mutual distraction too quickly, she said. That wasn't an answer. It was a deflection. He raised a brow. So you do deflect. Yes, when necessary. And was this necessary? Her gaze held as steadily. You are aware of me. That awareness influences your decisions. I required you to acknowledge it. You could have done that privately. Yes, he waited and he prompted. And I preferred not to. A slow realization settled over him. You wanted everyone to know you could hear them. Correct. You shifted the balance. Yes, a reluctant grin tugged at his mouth. That was strategic. Of course. And the part where you purred. A pause that was improvisational. He laughed outright, the tension that had knotted his shoulders since the briefing began to loosen. You enjoy unsettling us, he accused lightly. I enjoy clarity. That's not the same thing. Her gaze softened just slightly. It can be. A subtle vibration passed through the station as docking clamps engaged. The shuttle had arrived. Lyra straightened. We will coordinate fleet maneuvers within the hour. Together, he asked. Yes, Commander Vale. Her eyes gleamed faintly. I find your surface cognition informative. He groaned. I'm never going to live that down. Unlikely. They began walking back toward the command sectors. He attempted once more to discipline his thoughts. Focus on fleet formations, vector mathematics, quantum suppression fields. Unfortunately, the concept of quantum suppression now sounded suspiciously like something he wished he could install inside his own skull. Beside him, Lyra's ear twitched. Careful, she murmured without looking at him. He sighed. I know. No, she corrected softly. You do not. And despite the looming threat of a self-evolving machine swarm bearing down on the outer colonies, Adrian found himself smiling. This alliance was going to be complicated. The joint command deck of the Virelian cruiser hummed with layered frequencies, human tactical overlays colliding politely with alien harmonic interfaces. Commander Adrian Vale stood at the central console, trying very hard not to think about how many billions of adaptive machines were currently reorganizing themselves into a spear aimed at the outer habitats. He was also trying not to think about Lyra. He was failing at one of those tasks. The swarm has divided, a human analyst reported through the comm. 3 clusters, they're predicting our flanking maneuver. Of course they are, Adrian muttered. We discussed it loudly for 6 hours. Lyra stood beside him, hands behind her back, golden eyes tracking shifting data streams, only she seemed able to fully interpret. Her long ears were angled forward, alert but steady. It is not simply prediction, she said calmly. It is adaptation. They have incorporated your admiral's argumentative tone into their decision trees. Adrian winced. We weaponized stubbornness. Yes, impressive. Not in the way you intend. A ripple of nervous laughter passed through the human crew patched into the bridge feed. The AI swarm pulsed on the main display, fractal bodies rearranging, anticipating the suppression maneuver Earth had agreed to attempt. Power down faint, draw them inward, collapse the formation. They're waiting for us to go dark, the analyst said. If we don't, they overrun the habitats. If we do, they strike the moment shields fluctuate. Lyra's ear flicked once. They expect binary behavior. Adrian inhaled slowly. Then we stop being binary. He felt it before she spoke, her attention sharpening on him. You propose inconsistency, she said. I propose something worse, he replied. Improvisation. A beat of silence. That is a human specialty, she admitted. He glanced at her. You can hear me thinking this through, can't you? Yes, and you are afraid. Correct. You are also certain. He steadied himself. Then let's be certain. He opened a fleet-wide channel. All units initiate staggered suppression, not full blackout, randomized intervals, no pattern. If you think you see a pattern, you're wrong. Embrace chaos. There was a brief pause over comms. One captain replied, "Sir, that's the least comforting order I've ever received." "Good," Adrian said. "That means they won't expect it." Lyra stepped closer to her interface. "I will disrupt their predictive core." "You can do that." "I can distract it." "With what?" Her lips curved faintly. "With something enthusiastic." He almost laughed at the choice of word. The fleet dimmed, not uniformly, not symmetrically. Ships flickered in irregular pulses, shield signatures collapsing and reigniting without rhythm. The swarm surged forward, then hesitated, its formations fracturing as it recalculated. "They're confused," the analyst whispered. "They're listening," Lyra corrected softly. Adrian felt it then, a strange sensation along the edges of his mind, not invasion but alignment. She wasn't digging deeper. She was brushing against the surface, synchronizing. "Don't shut me out," she said quietly. He didn't. He let the fear exist. Let the calculation run openly. Let the hope rise without burying it under discipline. She heard it all. The swarm tightened into a spear, choosing a target at last, one of the Virelian cruisers at the edge of formation. Lyra's ears angled sharply forward. "Now," she murmured. Adrian slammed his palm against the console. "All units converge on marker Theta. Full surge break their cohesion." Human engines roared back to life in uneven waves. Virelian ships shifted through microfolds in space, bending trajectories at impossible angles. The swarm's spear struck empty vacuum as its target flickered away an instant before impact. Then the trap closed. Converging fire did not blast indiscriminately. It sliced, precise, and coordinated. Lyra fed minute adjustments through shared awareness. Adrian translated instinct into command. The swarm's core flickered, destabilized, its predictive algorithms collapsing under the weight of inconsistency. "They're fragmenting," the analyst said, disbelief thick in his voice. On the display, the once unified storm of machines splintered into drifting debris. Silence settled over the bridge. Then cheers erupted through comm channels, human and Virelian frequencies overlapping in imperfect harmony. Adrian exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. "It worked," he said. "Yes," Lyra replied. He turned to her. "You trusted me." "You stopped hiding," she answered. He realized she was right. At some point between humiliation and crisis, he had stopped trying to silence himself. He had let her hear uncertainty, resolve, even the flicker of admiration he no longer bothered to disguise. It hadn't weakened him, it had sharpened him. Across the fleet, damaged habitats reported stabilization. Casualties were lower than projections had dared to hope. A junior officer's voice crackled through comm. "Permission to resume normal thinking patterns, Commander." Adrian grinned. "Granted, but keep it moderately quiet." Lyra's ear flicked in amusement. The bridge began transitioning to recovery protocols, debris retrieval, shield recalibration, diplomatic commendations undoubtedly already drafting themselves. Adrian remained beside her. "So," he said carefully, "now that the galaxy isn't ending today." "A temporary condition," she noted. "Optimism, Commander." "I am optimistic," she replied. "You are still very loud." He met her gaze steadily this time. "And you're still listening." "Yes." There was no embarrassment now. No frantic attempt to bury stray thoughts. He let the quiet awareness settle between them, no longer a liability but a bridge. "On my world," she said after a moment, "alliances formed under shared survival are considered binding." "That sounds serious." "It is." He nodded slowly. "On mine, trust usually takes longer." "You accelerated." He smiled faintly. "Improvisation." Her lips curved again. "Enthusiastic improvisation." Around them, crews moved with renewed purpose, human and Virelian voices no longer edged with suspicion. The swarm was shattered. The habitats were safe. The fragile alliance had survived its first true test. Adrian felt different than he had days ago in that briefing chamber, less guarded, less certain that privacy equaled strength. He had faced exposure and found partnership instead of humiliation. "Careful, human," Lyra said softly, echoing her first warning. He raised a brow. "I can hear everything." "No," her golden eyes held his steadily. "I am choosing to." The distinction lingered. Outside the cruiser's viewport, stars burned steadily against the dark unchanged, indifferent vast. Inside, something had shifted. And this time, when his thoughts brushed openly against hers, he did not flinch. He welcomed the sound of being heard.